And welcome to another edition of Thoughts of the Roundtable with me, Matt Rebar.
And me, Paul Laux. And we are back again. It's been a few weeks.
Yeah, I think our last episode was February 1st, so we're kind of like a mid-February review.
Well, also, part of that is my fault because I decided to rip apart my bathroom and retile everything and put in a new tub. So it's an adult experience that's keeping me busy.
I love that you're putting in the subway tile, right? It looks so good.
Correct. Thank you.
I love those bathrooms that like the wall indents so that you could have like your soap
niches?
and shampoo. Yeah, the niches or whatever they're called. I love them. Looks so good.
So last time we talked about, I remember we were talking about the GameStop thing. GameStop, as I just call it. But so we should probably give a little update on that. And basically the update is that it kind of just went away from what it seemed like. Mm-hmm. Right now it's at about, last time I checked today, it was at $40. And if you remember, it was at like, I think the highest was what, 400 some?
Yeah, it was up there.
It was basically making a couple of those hedge fund people basically sell off. I think they ended up losing
billions and billions.
I think it was 19 billion that the one capital firm lost, and they were only worth 13 billion, so they lost more than their entire company was worth. So there was that, but they got it bailed. But basically what happened is Robinhood halted trading of it, and the government bailed them out. So basically, we backed up the billionaires and beat down the little guy again once they realized that. Did you see, by the way, there was some guy, I think he was on CNBC or something like that, and it was some billionaire hedge fund guy, and he was literally sobbing on there, like literally crying, and basically saying like, no, it's not fair that these people are able to do this. It's like, that's literally like, it's not our fault that they did it the right way and just tricked you. And, yeah, he was literally sobbing, but they won. They ended up getting bailed out. So, but have you been following that Dogecoin or whatever?
I have. Is it still on the rise?
Well, yes, but the thing is, it was literally fractions of a penny, but it has gone up like hundreds of percent. So it's like, I don't even know if it's literally a cent yet, to be honest. But. And I doubt that'll ever be anything, but Bitcoin is over $50,000.
Jeez.
Which is absurd. But basically, I don't know how you feel about that. That basically the billionaires won. They got bailed out. They got backed up by their friends. And honestly, I think what... sorry about that. I think what Robinhood did was probably one of the crappiest things I've ever honestly seen. And I don't even know how that's illegal. They have that huge class action lawsuit against them now for all their... Because they literally just manipulated it. Like, so... no one could trade it anymore. Yeah. And I'm not into that. I don't trade stocks or I don't do any of that. So I never really got too wrapped up in it. But I think it's complete bullshit. And it proves that, even if you're a little guy, even if you find a way to win, you're always going to lose. So it was disappointing in the end. But, it is what it is. That's how these things go. Sorry, it was a little tangent, but I was very
No, I think you summed it up really well. The sociologist in me, I think what's so interesting about this whole thing is that it proves that Wall Street is a casino. It's a sham. It really is fake in a way. And, to have these billionaires say, how dare people exploit the system that we've been exploiting is just hypocrites 101.
Same way they've been doing it. Like exploiting it the exact way they've been doing it. You know what also is bullshit is how politicians are allowed to trade on the stock market. That should never be allowed at all.
I have many problems with the modern government system, and that is one of them. Especially, like, you get reports all the time of senators who have these secret meetings, and then suddenly their stock portfolio changes overnight. Yeah. And you're like, come on. Like,
Nancy Pelosi just
stop
did
being
that.
so obvious about it. Yeah, it's
she
both
did that
sides.
with Tesla.
It's both sides, yeah.
So, they know, they have insider knowledge of what's coming with governmental things, and they'll dump stock or buy stock all the time when they know stuff is coming.
I think another huge takeaway, too, is, this investment hedge fund, what they do is they put money that basically they make bets that businesses are going to fail. So they make this bet on GameStop that they're going to, basically kind of buy these shares, but they're not like buying the shares, which is so weird to me. It's like
they're not borrowing shares.
Yeah, they're like borrowing them. And with the hope that when they have to cash them in, they'll actually make money off of the deal. And that to me is so shady, from the standpoint of like, obviously business 101, I'm aware that businesses are going to fail. But to be
you're basically
rooting for businesses to fail to make money off of it
hurts these businesses too, and basically chokes them to death.
I just think it's so unethical. I think it's so wrong. If there was a way for them to make money off the success of companies, I think that is great. That's kind of what Wall Street is. And that's kind of what these small guys did for a bit, right? They kind of made money off of this whole thing for a bit. But yeah, to be betting against companies, man, I just think, I don't know. I don't want to be a philosopher, but, my ethics professor right now, but to me, it's just so horrendous. And so, no, I don't feel bad that, these hedge funds lost all this money and that they're sobbing on national TV. It's like, that's good that you are in that position. Like, screw you,
all of
man.
Wall Street just bothers me.
I agree.
And it's just because it's just gambling essentially, and I hate that our economy is tied so much into it. But that's kind of just what you get with the system we have.
But what's even funnier, you have the Wall Street that's kind of like a casino, right? But then you have our currency, which isn't based on anything. Our money's not based on any gold or any riches. It's just printed money.
Are you a bring back the gold standard guy?
I'm not necessarily bring back the gold standard guy, but like you look at our economy and it's a mess. It's fake. It's, people always talk about like, well, look at all the jobs. And my big thing is look at the quality of the jobs, because you can have 2 million bad paying, no benefits, part-time jobs that like will crush people into poverty. That's not going to do any good. Right.
The problem with capitalism in general is it's a great system in theory, but you're really hedging your bets on the greed of the top corporations that basically run the government. Mm-hmm. And if the greed wasn't a thing, capitalism would be fantastic, but it is. So you're kind of it's kind of a balancing act with trying to manage the greed of these companies that basically control the lobbyists and borderline the government itself. So
I had a thought that I want to know your opinion on. Back when in the early 1900s with capitalism, obviously there was rampant poverty, but was there, I don't know, do you think that there's been more greed since the earlier days of capitalism?
No, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that, if there's been more or less. We have a lot more protections now over the years that consumers have. We have, dozens and dozens and dozens of new laws that have been enacted to protect, the middle class and the more common people. That is good. And, because back in the early 1900s, good Lord, it was basically
little kids losing their fingers in the warehouses.
And so, there's that. So companies are handcuffed a little bit there, but they're always going to be greedy in some way. I don't, whether there's more or not, I don't know.
I do wonder. This is kind of funny because me, I'm very liberal, but there's more non-religious people than ever. Back then, maybe was there more of a quote religious norm when it came to capitalism that you shouldn't be greedy in a way?
Oh God, no.
You think no. That's something that I think about.
It might have been worse back then.
Have people pulled away from institutions that have kind of were anti-greed? Like, to me, religion, a big thing is like, don't be greedy, right? Don't covet your neighbor. Don't covet your neighbor's wife. Don't covet your neighbor's goods. And so by stripping that away...
When has any CEO ever followed his morals?
I'm going to say, look at General Ford. Ford paid his employees fantastically. He was known for like really ushering in like workers and like, I think there's plenty of or Rockefeller. I don't know my research.
Wasn't
on
Rockefeller a douche?
I was just about to say he might have been a douche. So X-nay that on my evidence sheet. But point be saying, CEOs are making more money than ever. That we know. Elon Musk, Bezos, Bill Gates, these people are making money that like even Rockefeller would be like, oh my God, right? But the thing is too, Rockefeller did invest in the community. You look at Cleveland and like the gardens, the cultural gardens, I think he invested in. He invested in a ton of like the museum area, I believe. Again, don't quote me exactly, but look at just Jeff Bezos. The amount that he's donated is like 0.0%. It's
but he
so
also treats
incredibly
Amazon
low.
employees like crap.
Exactly. And like, even Ford, Ford he gave him the best that he could offer.
I've heard horror stories about working for Amazon. Like, it's just awful. Dude, this is kind of in the same realm. Mm-hmm. Have you seen there's some Amazon warehouse, I think it's in Louisiana. And
they're unionizing.
What?
Aren't they unionizing right now?
They're trying to, but the crazy things that Amazon is doing to try to break up their union talks, like they will, the craziest, like obviously there's the basic, like they'd hang posters in the bathroom about why it's not good to unionize, how you lose your health insurance, and that kind of basic stuff. But
imagine like sitting to go to the bathroom and you like have that poster in your face and you're like, oh,
yeah, you're taking a
hate
dump
my
and
life.
You're like, you're trying to poop and there's just a non-unionized poster in front of you. But no, the craziest thing I heard is that there was a group of Amazon workers who would like they had like a picket line, and they were handing out information about how to unionize and why they should unionize, like the Amazon employees, and they stationed themselves at a stoplight right outside the Amazon warehouse, so the employees would stop and they'd talk to them and get the pamphlets or everything. And Amazon convinced the city to always make that light green. And so people never had the chance to stop and talk to the unionizers.
Wow. That is so like diabolical. That's like Disney villain.
Dude, it is. But that's the kind of shit that happened in the early 1900s too, all the union busters. Those...
Well, unions were strongest post-World War II.
Correct.
And when they were strongest, the wages were at their best. I think it came out to about $12 in today's money an hour. Was like the average, and now we're like the minimum wage is down to $7. And
have you ever heard of the Big Mac Index?
Yes, and it's so. Explain it for people. I think it's so crazy.
And at least I hopefully we're on the same page here, but it's the inflation rate of the Big Mac
versus minimum wage. Yes.
Versus minimum wage, and how minimum wage hasn't gone up since like 2009, I think it was.
Oh, maybe. But and even then, it was like 10 cents.
Yeah. But the Big Mac,
Mac's doubled.
It's like 72% inflation since.
Yeah, it's insane.
The Big Mac Index. I read about that the other day, but because everyone always like $15 an hour will spike prices, and in some areas it will. It definitely will. Mm-hmm. But like inflation's been happening anyway. So.
Yeah, the point is the argument that like if we don't raise minimum wage, things are gonna get more expensive. Plot twist, they've been getting more expensive. Like,
in reality, it's putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone. I think I've said that before. Like, it's not the end-all be-all. And honestly, in some areas, it's probably not even a good idea. But, no one else is doing anything else. We're not working on healthcare. We're not working on making school affordable. So we don't really have any other choice. These are things that if you were actually working on, like if we were trying to make healthcare cheaper, we were trying to make, job training more affordable, housing more affordable, then really the minimum wage, a $15 minimum wage thing would kind of die off because it wouldn't be as prudent as it is now with all of these things just getting out of control. But we don't want to work on any of that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, they don't want to work on all of the other things that are making the $15 an hour mandatory, but also they don't want to talk about raising the wage. It's just, they don't want to do it. Nobody wants to do anything.
Another thing, too, that I get kind of annoyed about is people when they're like, they use the example of the McDonald's employee with minimum wage, and they go, well, if you have minimum wage, you're going to have robots doing the work. And it's like, shouldn't we celebrate that we as a society have advanced so much that, like, menial labor and tasks can be handled by automation? Like, the amount of jobs that can open up. I'm just saying, like, if we lived in a society where, like, a lot of, mundane, hard-working tasks can be done by automation, that means that there's more people to do more, awesome, inventive things, creative things. Listen, I get a little creeped out by robots sometimes, but the idea that like we can live in a society where like we're continuously enriching ourselves because of our access to automation and automatons and all that, I think it's great.
Also, that's not going to happen. You're never going to see McDonald's run by robots entirely. So,
you'd have to have like a manager and like technicians on site or whatever, but I'm just saying, like the process of fast food is not, you don't need like a sous chef in McDonald's to get it done.
I was a McDonald's sous chef.
Oh, were you? Oh yeah, in high school, right?
I worked at McDonald's 3 years. I cooked burgers. You know what? Honestly, it really wasn't that bad of a job. I quite enjoyed it, believe it or not. It wasn't bad.
It's hard work. You're on your feet, you're running around.
Well, The problem was I was working with all my high school buddies. It was like all my baseball friends.
Jacking off the whole time.
That was basically me cooking burgers with my dudes. I'm like, okay, whatever, this is fine.
So I also want to add, Texas, what's happening right now in Texas. For those who are unaware, Texas is having historically snowy, cold winter. The winter storm's crashing. And I did some research because I'm like, what is the issue? And I learned this week that Texas has its own power grid.
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I did not know this. Well, maybe I did and I forgot, but I
They're
don't
privatized,
think I
I believe.
It's privatized. And here's where it goes back to earlier, kind of what we were talking about. This company that's privatized the majority of Texas's electricity, they've been told for years that their infrastructure needs updating, it needs winterizing, it needs to be refreshed.
Just on that point, it's of note that the entire U.S. power grid sucks. The entire thing. I'm not even a joke. The entire thing sucks. They're just the worst of the worst, basically.
Well, because they're privatized, and so in their eyes, they need to make a profit. They want to squeeze out every penny they can. Versus, maybe a federal, it's a little slow, it's, yada yada, things are behind. But this is a different agenda, right? And it's insane to me. I'm like, how? How, Texas? Why? This is like, I'm so pissed. I'm so pissed about it. And how are they going to change that? How are they going to regulate that? How are they going to, put in new law on that?
And now, of course, here comes all the people like Ted Cruz. He was talking about all these wind turbines that all the Democrats want. They froze up and they don't work. And then he tweeted some picture of a frozen wind turbine, but it was one from Siberia from a couple years ago. And this guy, everything he can do, and the best part of it, that's kind of turned on its head a little bit, is Ted Cruz is obviously notoriously, horrifically against basically any sort of COVID relief, literally anything. And I think it was today, he's like, why isn't Biden giving us relief? Why isn't he helping us? It's like, you literally don't want to help anybody. Why do you want it? Why do you care?
The best part of the whole lie about the windmills, weren't windmills made in Denmark? And Denmark's way colder than Texas. So if it worked for Denmark, it'll work for Texas.
I mean, that's not even I don't know how much of the power comes from the wind turbines. I truly don't.
It's so small. That's the thing. It's so small. And what's even better, Paul, the windmills are performing better than they expected under these conditions. The problem is the gas. All the gas, the pipeline, something froze up. So they can't get the gas out is apparently the issue.
I thought it was their electrical grid that was having the issue.
I think it's
was that wrong with that?
I think it's a few things maybe, but from what I read, it had to do with something with the gas, something with freezing with the gas. So
I mean, everyone loves privatized stuff, but man, listen.
I don't. Name one thing privatized in America that's working right now.
These companies, well, airlines doing okay. I think I have thoughts on that, but where was I going with this? When you privatize an entire sector like that, you kind of have to rely on these companies because the thing is obviously the maintenance is going to cost money. The people are going to cost money. The upkeep, the updates, all that's going to cost money. And if you privatize it, you're basically hedging all of your bets that these companies will take some of their dear profits and push it into these things, which are mandatory.
They're not. It's
which
capitalism.
They won't do.
They are penny pinching. They are going to exploit. They are going to do the bare minimum. It's you have two ways of looking at it.
And it bites them in the ass every time. Yeah. It bites them in the ass every time, and they never change. They will do this again and again and again.
It's you have two types of people who are going to, let's say you need a fence built. You tell the one guy goes, I'll build your fence for $2,000. The other guy goes, you give me $1,000 and I'll see what I can do. Who's going to build the better fence? It's going to be the guy who says, here's the $2,000, here's why you need to pay that much, versus the guy who says, pay me $1,000 for the whole project, I'm going to squeeze every penny and give you a bad fence.
Also, did you see that mayor, I guess somewhere in Texas, smaller town, but he basically told people it's sink or swim, no one owes you anything.
A few politicians from Texas have said this.
Really? Well, yes. The one was, he goes, these power companies don't owe you anything. I'm like, bitch, I pay my bill every month. Yes, they do owe me something.
But I'm sorry, are we a modern society or are we a 1500s colony of animals that like we're all going to be individual. We're not going to help each other. And we're not going to, you know, at some point, like, when are they going to just, like, admit that, like, you know what, we're not a society. We are just a bunch of people looking out for our own self-interest at all times. Because that's what it feels like with this whole situation. And, I mean, you know, I've been very curious,
let's be honest, this will happen again. They're not going to update these things. It'll happen again.
Well, I've been wondering, you know, they say that Texas will be the next state to go blue. That's kind of the prediction. That
They've said that for a long time. I don't know either. There's pockets of Texas that I mean, Texas is always going to be Texas, but I mean, Austin is obviously very blue.
Houston's all the cities, yeah.
Dallas is not. I don't know if Dallas will ever really go blue, but I don't know.
They talk about voter suppression. They talk a lot about the voter suppression. So if they can do what they did to Georgia and Texas, who knows? I mean, it could be close, but I do wonder if this situation, what's going to be the fallout? Because there has to be a fallout.
Do you think Georgia was a fluke, or do you think that'll stay blue for a while?
I genuinely think it depends on how these two senators do and what Biden does. I think it depends on, you know, if they continue to push for voter registration, if they continue to push for new registration and old voter registration. It depends. I mean, the votes were so close, man. I mean, they really were. And you can say, well, with the Trump thing, and that didn't help the Republican candidates. You could say that that's a possibility.
I mean, people forget that Trump still got 74 million votes, which is
that's insane.
Insane. So, South Carolina also is tending purple. So we'll see what happens with them.
Well, they said the same about North Carolina, and North Carolina felt really red. And I was actually shocked too at how red Ohio was this time around.
I'm not. We've been trending red the past few years.
And I'm like, where are these people? Because
Southern Ohio. It's all Southern Ohio.
Yeah, it must be, because I don't. I mean, I know a few people up here in
Cleveland. I mean, the blue
red,
counties. The blue counties are, you know, I'm not going to say the county names because no one understands it besides unless you live in Ohio. But Cuyahoga, which is Cleveland, Franklin, which is Columbus,
Columbus, Cincy, Toledo, Youngstown.
No, not even. Well, Toledo. Yeah, Toledo did.
Yeah, Toledo went blue. Yeah. The thing, though, too, I think that we think about is
Athens is.
Oh, and Athens, yeah, and maybe Dayton. Did Dayton? Maybe. Anyway,
probably.
Long story made short. I do wonder again how much voter suppression is involved in the state. Could we also poll Georgia in the future? You know, and you have to think about too how many people are just like disinterested who would be voting for Democratic candidates but just don't have the they're not being pushed enough to do so.
Right.
Who knows? It could all flip in 4 years and. We'll see. Well, this was an extra long, juicy capitalism chat today.
I like that we're heading towards the more political realm.
I know. I get so
maybe we'll get our own talk show on AM.
Hey, and if you're listening from Texas, which I don't think we have any Texas listeners, but if we do, we're sending our thoughts and prayers and love.
I don't know if we
energy.
have any Ohio listeners.
I don't know if we have any listeners in general. But if you're going through that right now, we send our best. And
yes.
When this is over, you got to make sure you put things into action so this doesn't happen again.
Fix that power brigade.
Hold people to, their actions and their consequences. So, all right. Well, another episode is in the bag. That's been another Thoughts of the Roundtable. And peace out.
Later.